Hey there Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. And if you are new here, my name is Hannah. I am an astrologer and I make videos all about astrology. So in today's video, we're going to be discussing the 5 things that you need to know about this full moon in Sagittarius taking place on the 14th of June 2022. So stay tuned. But before we do dive into today's video, don't forget to subscribe if you have not already. Hit the like button and click the bell. And if you're interested in a personal reading, you can visit my website, hannahselsewhere.com. There you can also find my Practical Astrology ebooks and merch. All the links will be in the description box below. Alright, so I do hope that you find this video to be helpful. Let's do this. Okay, so the first thing you need to know about this full moon in Sagittarius is that it will oppose the sun in Gemini at 23 degrees, creating the number 5 in numerological terms. And 5 represents things like adventure, wit, curiosity, adaptability, freedom, expansion, change, experience, and opportunity. All pretty Sagittarius themes if you ask me. And Sagittarius, of course, being the sign that rules over things like questing, adventure, wanting more, growth, freedom, and being open to new experiences, possibilities, and opportunities. And with us being in Gemini season, there is a great deal of curiosity and change. We experienced that new moon in Gemini at the end of May, and here we are with this full moon in Sagittarius quickly approaching. Gemini season, in my opinion, has just been flying by. But yes, this Gemini season, we have been asking ourselves many questions. Questions about our purpose and direction, questions about the things we have been learning about and teaching, and questions regarding our intellect, mind, and social skills. But as we approach this full moon in Sagittarius, we are taking things a step further and we are wanting to really understand things more clearly. We are spreading our wings and we are searching for something bigger. We are considering our meaning, our higher calling. We are looking at our beliefs and morals once again. Now keep in mind that we experienced 2 eclipses in the sign of Sagittarius last year, and the South Node was in Sagittarius whilst those eclipses were taking place. There was a lunar eclipse on the 26th of May 2021 and a solar eclipse on the 4th of December 2021. Not to mention, we also experienced 2 other eclipses in Sagittarius back in 2020, a lunar eclipse on the 5th of June 2020 and a solar eclipse on the 14th of December 2020. Therefore, this is the first full moon in Sagittarius that we will be experiencing after 2 years of eclipses in this expansive and optimistic sign. So really try to think back to those times in 2020, 2021, especially thinking back to the most recent eclipse in Sagittarius on the 4th of December 2021. So what intentions were you setting regarding the bigger picture, regarding higher learning and growth, for example? Was there something you wanted to move away from? Was there something that you outgrew? Or maybe you wanted to take things in a whole new direction? And so with this full moon coming up, perhaps you are wanting to tie up a few loose ends. Or maybe you will reap some rewards, or perhaps you'll experience clarity. Maybe something starts to become clear and understood, or maybe you release something to do with your beliefs, your teachings, your meanings, your blessings. And interestingly, back in December, I started making moon cycle videos on the channel. To be honest, I didn't really set specific intentions. I just knew I wanted to make them. And I'm glad that I started, because I've been able to share astrology related content in a whole new way. I've been teaching astrology in a new way, just as a whole, which I'm really happy about. I've certainly been able to deepen my understanding of it, and I've been talking about the bigger picture a lot more. So that's just something from my own experience, really. Maybe you can relate in some way, whether this be a relationship situation, a work situation, or a family situation. Essentially, there is something expansive about this full moon. Not only, though, are we reflecting upon how far we've come, but we are also reflecting upon where we've still to go from here, where we've still to go regarding our future aspirations, regarding our wider teachings and our core principles. We are enjoying the fruits of our labor whilst shedding old skin. So on that note, let's say that this full moon is taking place in your 7th house. So looking at you, Gemini, Sun, Moon, and risings. Perhaps during this period, you reap some rewards within your business partnerships or relationships. Maybe you receive more support from a business partner, or your connections expand, or maybe you feel hopeful and positive and uplifted by your significant other or by a certain business opportunity. Now, back in December, perhaps you were setting new intentions when it came to these things. But now you're starting to enjoy the fruits of your labor. But at the same time, perhaps you are releasing a confrontational matter, or you are moving past a settlement that didn't go according to plan, for example. Or let's say this full moon is taking place in your 3rd house, so looking at you, Libra, Sun, Moon, and risings. Perhaps during this period, you reap some rewards to do with your neighborhood or to do with your siblings. Maybe you feel more positive about how things are going, or maybe you can see a brighter future ahead, or perhaps you feel supported greatly. Now, back in December, maybe you were setting new intentions when it came to these things, but now you're starting to enjoy the fruits of your labor. But at the same time, maybe you are letting go of a scattered situation, or perhaps you are releasing something to do with unnecessary preaching. Or let's say this full moon is taking place in your 11th house, so looking at you, Aquarius, Sun, Moon, and risings. Perhaps during this period, you reap some rewards to do with your group participations and your friendships. Maybe you feel like you can open up more about things, or maybe you are able to visualize growth regarding your future plans, but perhaps it's people within your groups that support you. Or perhaps you feel positive about your friendships. Now, as an Aquarius Sun person, I can certainly relate. Though back in December, perhaps you were setting new intentions when it came to these things, but now you're starting to enjoy the fruits of your labor. And at the same time, maybe you move away from an argumentative situation, or perhaps you release this urge to be right all the time. The second thing that you need to know about this full moon in Sagittarius is that Jupiter will be in Aries during it, and Jupiter will also sextile Mercury in Gemini. And the really interesting thing about this is that Mercury will have just entered Gemini after being retrograde in Gemini and Taurus. Mercury stationed direct on June 3rd and will enter Gemini once again on June 13th. So therefore, Mercury in Gemini will be at 0 degrees during this full moon. Now, Mercury will still be in its shadow period, of course, and so we are still thinking about the lessons we learned during the Mercury retrograde between May 10th and June 3rd. But if you can think back to the 29th of April, when Mercury entered Gemini last, well, perhaps there were things you were wanting to communicate or teach. Perhaps there was something significant regarding your ideas, regarding your humor, or regarding your education. And the great thing about Jupiter in Aries making a sextile to Mercury in Gemini is that you just might feel energized and motivated to make things happen. Perhaps you have this greater sense of direction, greater understanding, or you feel this greater meaning, this greater purpose. Essentially, you experience mental clarity. The path feels clearer. What you want to achieve intellectually, it becomes just more obvious, more apparent. And with the full moon being in Sagittarius, you feel positive, you feel hopeful, inspired, you can see what opportunities are available. The only thing I would say to be aware of is the difficulties in focus and concentration, as well as the number of choices available. You may feel overwhelmed by so many options, or you may want to spread yourself very, very wide as you push just to do it all. But realistically speaking, it's good to assess what you can or can't do physically. But not only that, to also assess what your goals are. Just drawing from my own experience with this, I have been thinking heavily this past year about doing a degree in psychology this September. It would take me about 6 years to complete this degree because I would go part-time with it. I think it would be a fascinating subject to study, and it would also help me within the field of astrology. However, after thinking things over a lot, I don't think it's something I can realistically dedicate my time to. Things may change, of course, yes, but this is just an example of what I mean about being realistic. I would be really overwhelmed, I think, if I juggled too many things at once for 6 years. Not to mention, I would probably burn myself out, and I don't think that's a risk that I would want to take. And I also think doing a degree in psychology, it was coming from a place of having to keep up as an astrologer. I don't need a degree in psychology to be an astrologer, but I was convincing myself that I did. And besides, I already have a degree and I've been studying astrology extensively for the past 6 years. So you know what, perhaps this is why it's good to appreciate where I am and how far I have come to kind of look at the rewards in that way. Now, the good thing is that we also have some grounding energy here, okay? Some practical energy, some calming energy, because Venus will be in Taurus during this full moon. But more on that later. Right, so let's say this full moon is taking place in your 8th house. So looking at you, Taurus, Sun, Moon, and risings. Jupiter in Aries will transit your 12th house, and Mercury in Gemini will transit your 2nd house. So whilst you shine a light on intimate and vulnerability matters, you also experience greater mental clarity when it comes to your financial position and money habits. Perhaps you have a greater sense of what you can earn or save, or maybe you can come up with new ideas regarding your earning potential. And also, perhaps you feel greater happiness and joy behind the scenes. You feel pretty good about how things are going regarding your rest, regarding your sleep, regarding your time alone. Or let's say this full moon is taking place in your 4th house. So looking at you, Virgo, Sun, Moon, and risings. Jupiter in Aries will transit your 8th house, and Mercury in Gemini will transit your 10th house. So whilst you shine a light on family-related matters and your emotional security, you also experience greater mental clarity when it comes to your profession, when it comes to your public presence. Kind of funny after I just gave that example from my own life, and I have a Virgo rising. But yes, perhaps your intellectual pursuits within your career, they will appear much clearer. And also, perhaps you feel hopeful and optimistic about shared resources or about your partner's money. You feel excited about what you can achieve together. Or perhaps it's that you feel more hopeful and excited about the intimacy that you share with one another as well. Or let's say this full moon is taking place in your 12th house. So looking at you, Capricorn, Sun, Moon, and risings. Jupiter in Aries will transit your 4th house, and Mercury in Gemini will transit your 6th house. So whilst you shine a light on things like relaxation, renewal, and inner peace, you also experience greater mental clarity when it comes to your day-to-day, stuff, when it comes to your occupation, when it comes to services you provide. Maybe you know what you want to talk about, or you feel ready to have certain conversations with employers or co-workers, or maybe you decide to teach in new ways, or maybe it's that you can see what you can switch up and change when it comes to your daily routines. And also, perhaps you feel uplifted and hopeful about your family life. There's a sense of freedom. Maybe you decide to take a trip with your family somewhere, or you decide to get away somewhere, or you feel a happier connection with loved ones. The third thing you need to know about this full moon in Sagittarius is that the moon in Sagittarius and the sun in Gemini will square Neptune in Pisces during it. Okay, so there will most likely be a ton of scattered, confusing, chaotic, and inconsistent energy going on during this full moon. You might not know which way is up, or you might also become very emotional and overly sensitive. Perhaps we need to let out our emotions, or maybe we will be over the top. Perhaps we blow things out of proportion, or we say something that we can't take back. We might be extra sensitive actually to other people's opinions and judgments and feedback. Or maybe it's that our wires are crossed, leading to all sorts of confusions and misunderstandings. We may find it difficult to make sense of certain things, especially things regarding other people's emotions, regarding other people's feelings. Perhaps in this respect, it's a good idea to have some breathing space, to have moments where we can check in with ourselves. And if we can have some time alone, take it. Take that time to collect ourselves, to go inward. And also, perhaps we see things through those rose-colored glasses, those Pisces glasses. It's like, is this really happening or is it not? What is real in this situation? What is the truth and what is deceptive? Is this person being loving and empathetic, or are they manipulating my feelings? Is this person really being honest with me, or are they just trying to hurt my feelings? Something that appears logical might be much more complicated, and something that is pretty out there can perhaps be explained with greater logic. We might want to run away from the confusion and avoid anything too messy and deep. So, let's say this full moon is taking place in your 9th house. So looking at you, Aries, sun, moon, and risings. Neptune in Pisces will transit your 12th house. So during this period, perhaps you experience greater clarity when it comes to the things that you broadcast and publish. Maybe you want to release a few things to do with the bigger picture or to do with your future aspirations. And as someone with an Aries moon, I can also relate to this. But at the same time, perhaps you aren't seeing things clearly regarding a hospital matter or a sacrificial matter. Perhaps you are being overly idealistic. Therefore, maybe it's a good idea to get a few things straight. Be honest and truthful with yourself. Possibly seek further answers from people who can actually help, people who can support. Or let's say this full moon is taking place in your 5th house, so looking at you, Leo, sun, moon, and risings. This means that Neptune in Pisces will transit your 8th house. During this period then, perhaps you experience greater clarity when it comes to entertainment, when it comes to your love life. Perhaps you let go of things to do with enjoyment and pleasure. Maybe you are searching for something more, for something that lights you up. But at the same time, perhaps you aren't seeing things clearly regarding an intimate matter or regarding a deeply personal situation. Maybe you are being overly idealistic or caught up in your feelings. Therefore, perhaps it would be beneficial to go over a few things, to be honest with yourself, to take some time to go inward, possibly seek further answers from your friends, from your allies. And this leads me on to the 4th thing that you need to know about this full moon in Sagittarius, and that is that the moon will biquintile Uranus in Taurus during it, and Uranus in Taurus will also conjunct Venus in Taurus as well. Like I said earlier, with this Taurus energy, we can ground ourselves, we can be practical, we can also experience greater calmness. Perhaps we can try to stabilize ourselves just a little bit rather than getting too carried away by things. And seeing as the moon will biquintile Uranus, perhaps you experience these flashes of insight in relation to your finances or your earning potential or your physical security. And these things may very well lead to rewards and luxuries later on. Or maybe there is something you would like to change or improve within your relationships. And out of nowhere, you put those changes in place. Or perhaps you consider your style or your taste. And so you come up with all of these new exciting ideas. Essentially, there are opportunities for growth regarding our materials and our physical worlds. There are opportunities during this full moon to turn things around and to look at things through a positive lens. So on that note, let's say this full moon is taking place in your first house. So looking at you, Sagittarius, sun, moon, and risings. Uranus and Venus in Taurus will transit your sixth house. During this period, perhaps you reflect upon your life path and your direction. You shine a light on all of your future aspirations and you consider your growth. You consider how you can expand. And at the same time, you address how bigger moves can lead to greater rewards in work, for example, or how they can lead to a more freeing yet consistent routine. Or perhaps you experience these flashes of insight to do with your daily habits and you are willing to further yourself. But then let's say this full moon is taking place in your sixth house, so looking at you, Cancer, sun, moon, and risings. Uranus and Venus in Taurus will transit your 11th house. So during this period, maybe you reflect upon your daily life and occupation. You shine a light on your growth and your progress when it comes to these things. Or perhaps you are seeking something more, something bigger. And at the same time, you address how bigger work changes can lead to wider networks or more social opportunities. Or maybe you realize that feeling happier on a day-to-day basis can create more satisfying and valuable friendships. Or quite possibly, you experience these flashes of insight to do with your future plans. And so you are willing to take on new opportunities at work. And the fifth and final thing you need to know about this full moon in Sagittarius taking place on the 14th of June 2022 is that the moon will trine Mars and Chiron in Aries during it. Now, the significant thing is that both Chiron and Mars will be making the same degree. Therefore, this is one potent conjunction. Though, what does this conjunction suggest about this full moon? Well, perhaps we experience difficulties asserting ourselves due to insecurity or doubt. Maybe we have all these fears and these worries regarding our identity or our life path. It's like, can I do this? Do I really have what it takes? Am I kidding myself? Surely I'm not good enough. Me? Why me? What do I have to offer? Yes, it's these types of insecurities that may be felt during this full moon. Our fighting spirit may feel wounded or bruised in some way. We may not see our potential due to our own feelings of lack and doubt. We might even feel ashamed, or we might fear being rejected or shut out. Like others will have something to say about our wants or our desires or our goals. Plus, we may not be aware of our strengths or of the things we are capable of. But the thing about Chiron is that it's also the wounded healer. Therefore, there are opportunities to heal here, or at the very least, to improve, to move forward, to find the strength within us, and to teach others about their potential strength and courage. Indeed, this is a full moon where we are called to be brave, to take the first step, because that's where it all starts from, right? Anything you want to do or achieve, it all starts with the first initial step. The first phone call, the first video, the first episode, whatever it may be, we must begin if we are to see results. Therefore, remind yourself of your leadership and of your innovation. Remind yourself that you are the catalyst. So, let's say this full moon is taking place in your second house. So, looking at you, Scorpio, sun, moon, and risings. Mars and Chiron in Aries will transit your sixth house. So during this period, perhaps you reap some rewards regarding your finances and your earning potential, such as starting a new job or receiving better pay. Or maybe you experience greater clarity when it comes to the things you're talented at, when it comes to the things that you're skilled at. You have a better understanding of what you would like to build or move on from. But at the same time, maybe you are faced with a few insecurities within your occupation. Perhaps you doubt yourself, or you worry that you won't have the strength, or maybe you doubt that you'll have the courage to deal with a health-related matter. Yet perhaps you realize that it's about taking the first step. It's about initiating. Or let's say this full moon is taking place in your 10th house. So looking at you, Pisces, sun, moon, and risings. Mars and Chiron in Aries will transit your second house. So during this period, perhaps you reap rewards regarding your public presence or your career, such as receiving greater recognition or being promoted, or maybe you experience greater clarity when it comes to your accomplishments and your achievements. You have a better understanding of what you would like to achieve or let go of. But at the same time, maybe you are faced with a few insecurities when it comes to your materials and money. Perhaps you doubt the process, or you worry about your security, or maybe you feel less strength regarding your self-worth. Yet, perhaps you realize that it's about taking the first step because, well, it starts with you. Okay then, Cosmic Warriors, so that concludes my video on the 5 things that you need to know about this full moon in the sign of Sagittarius taking place on the 14th of June 2022. Please, please, please let me know if you found this video to be helpful. I would really, really appreciate that. And as always, let me know your thoughts and your opinions in the comment section down below. But with all of that being said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing, and of course, if you have not yet subscribed, then make sure that you click that subscribe button and also give this video a like if you liked it today. And I will be back with another video very, very soon. Bye! Happy full moon.